Well, hello everybody, and welcome to the Tuesday Live. We have a special guest, Ed Hubbell from Iridium Solutions is the name of the company. He told me many of his profiles are the Iridium Group. I was clarifying that before we started. And we've got John Willis from Special Operations Equipment. I'm Nicole from Living Free in Tennessee, and we're going to talk about whatever y'all ask us about today. Before we jump into that, though, Ed, tell us about yourself and what you like to do for fun, and what people should know about you.
I make a bad comedian. I'm far too serious. Typically speaking, I'm not good at jokes. But what I am really good at is teaching people things and showing up when I say I'm going to show up. And so I'm man, I'm all over the place. I'm in the body armor space and gas masks and CBRN stuff and medical stuff, industrial inspection. I as I was growing up, I was a goldsmith first, and then you know moved around a bunch. I have some expertise with radiation and moving radioactive isotopes all over the country and to different parts of the planet. So now, and in my 40s, I basically do whatever it feels like I should be doing at the time, and that can change day to day. But right now, it's going live on YouTube because I have the time during the day to do it. And I mean, John, you know me, we know each other in real life, and frequently, things will happen on the internet that I'm just not a part of because I'm up here in northern British Columbia and effectively the middle of nowhere where there's still cell phone dead zones, and I'm out in the world, and so I'm sort of shifting to where I'm a bit more available to the internet, a bit more available to help people out, online and by selling them things and teaching them things, and that's where I'm at in the end of 2022, which has been a hell of a roller coaster, frankly.
Yes, it has. So what made you get into all of those things, body armor, teaching people how to be more prepared, and the sorts of things that you do?
Um, well, the getting into them was simply like I need to know something, and so I very early on, anytime I needed to know something, my mo was to go find an expert and have them teach me. And you find when you go to people with expertise and have them teach you things, if you show up and are a good student, as in you show up, you're there to learn, you're participating, um, you get more than just the standard, teacher student, here you go, push you out. There's access to other opportunities, and you get the opportunity to learn more, to participate further. And I've always tried to find that every time I'm interacting with somebody who knows more than me, which I appreciate, being in rooms with people who are smarter than me, know more than me, make more money than me. I love that shit, and I try to be of value to them however I can, and it's reciprocated. And so it was sort of a path where I was like, I need to learn this thing. Well, I go do this. There's people I meet there. They have things to teach me. Went and learned that, and the older you get, the more, I guess not everybody, but the older I got, the more I wanted to be able to handle whatever life threw at me. I believe that life isn't designed to get easier; it's designed to get harder, and we're supposed to get stronger to handle it. Right up to the point where we can't anymore, and that's when we die. That's sort of how I see life going. And so, as soon as you form that sort of thought in your brain, there's really no choice other than to do that, to just sort of get after it, and then do it again, and then more, and then bigger. That's that's about that.
How old are your kids?
6 and 8.
So they take like dog sled to school? Because you're pretty rural up there.
Yeah. So Prince George, BC is where we live. We live outside of town. And it's British Columbia's northern capital. That's what it's always been. And there's about 80,000 people in the area. So it's not Camden tiny. It's got all the things. But growing up here, completely possible to get into a vehicle, drive in any direction for about 15 minutes, and not see another person for a week. That's how we grew up. And from a preparedness standpoint, you could see really quickly that you really don't have any choice but to be able to figure shit out on the fly, solve problems, just to get home without your toes frozen off sometimes, right?
Tougher kind of people, man. Definitely different lifestyle.
Much lower population density too. So people tended, I think it's changed over the last 30 or 40 years, but people growing up tended to be very self-reliant just by nature. You just sort of had to be, right? Or you migrated south to where it was warmer and more comfortable.
So if you change, I know what your job used to be. Have you kind of changed so that you have more free time now? Have you stopped doing the other, or is it just kind of off season right now?
I would very much like to not have to go do that anymore.
Okay. And that's kind of the direction that you're headed right now.
All my certifications are all still valid. The phone still rings, and currently the answer is if I can't be here, at nighttime, I'm not so interested. 20 years is a long time to be going out to the middle of nowhere, solving problems and doing shit basically, by yourself.
So do you see with economy the way it is and with things going on in current politics and stuff and the business that you're in, do you see your business growing or do you see a decline in business right now?
Yeah, the business will grow at the rate that I'll let it grow. I'm not a good business person. I know I'm pretty good at doing entrepreneurial shit and I'm good at marketing myself. But as far as scaling the business, that by necessity requires you to take yourself out of doing all the things, and then bring people in to do that. And that's not something that I've really focused on. We've got some people that help us out, and I'm very grateful to them. But the business is a function of me needing to be able to reach larger areas and audiences and help people. And honestly, if the business were to fail tomorrow, that wouldn't be a problem for me.
But your content's really good, and there's a lot of it, right? I see your content, and I don't seek your content. I'm not specifically looking for it, but I see a ton of it. Yep. So with that, I would think that you'd get some click-through links, and you would see business continue to rise because your stuff is out there. People are sharing it constantly.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it is. It's getting better and better. And I guess what I was saying is, from the sort of sales side of the business, if I wanted to transition into selling things, that would be possible, but it's not really in my nature long term.
Okay.
I don't know that I could keep up just selling things to people for a very like for example, this year, conflict in Ukraine. I'm selling body armor, and Ukraine's calling all the time, hey, send us all the body armor. And it's like, so what I ended up doing is finding some Canadians that were going over to do, specific missions over there, pulling people out, helping people, and getting them set up instead. And that felt a lot more right. Now, from pure capitalism standpoint, I probably could have made a much better profit by just shipping body armor over to the conflict zone and then not caring, which mafia group or whoever intercepted it and did whatever they wanted with it. And the same with, medical equipment and that. But what came out of all of that was I had the opportunity to spend evenings, weekends, because it's a different time zone over there. When it's our day, it's their night. And when it's their day, it's our night. So I'd spend the nights teaching people basic radiation safety. And these are people who live, within rock throwing distance of Chernobyl, who you would think fucking already know this because they grew up around it. But the truth is they were told their entire life, you don't have to worry about it. Just walk the other way. They didn't know shit. And so this guy in Canada was getting on Skype calls and Zoom meetings and shit like that, and just teaching him just the real basic tenets. There's more value in that. There was no money in it, but it was more helpful. And as I saw Canadians, because primarily I feed the Canadian market because all the stuff I sell is available to you in America for less money because you don't have to pay customs and duties both ways, right? The Canadian market, dramatically smaller, right? Like 1/10 of your market at best. but Canadians were panic buying, and that doesn't make me feel good. I actually don't like, servicing the panic buy. Every one of those people, I wanted to write a handwritten note saying like, yep, here's the potassium iodide pills. You don't need to take them. Please stock up on water and food. Email me if you want to know more. And I did that for quite a while. But then you run out of time in a day. And if you run out of time in a day to do that, there's only so much, right? So yeah, it's the content is great. And I'm grateful to the partners that I have that help me produce that. And certainly I enjoy doing that. That's a lot of fun.
Yeah, that's what I was going to ask you is what do you love to do most out of all the things you're doing in your business? Is content the thing? Is training the thing? What are the things that make you happiest while you're doing them?
I like giving people the unlock code, which is the permission to act in shitty situations. So ostensibly that's teaching them this course and, teaching them about this shit. But in real life, that's looking somebody in the eyeballs and saying, yes, you're wearing that tourniquet. It's on for real. Yes, it hurts. You can still do what you have to do. I am giving you permission to just keep moving forward. And every time I can do that for somebody, it's of value to them in their life. And that I like that.
Mm-hmm. So the other things that you do that you hate at your business, what do those look like? Is there anything?
Yeah, shipping. Logistics. I have an order from a good company in America, a good vendor, lots of made in USA stuff that is currently held up in Canada Customs. It's been there for a month. Yep. Because they didn't put it on a UPS truck, they put it in the USPS postal box, and brokers don't know what to do with it. And because of the value, it's just been held up, and it might get sent back. It certainly isn't going to be here for people to buy this stuff for Christmas time. Yeah. And that kind of bullshit is, frankly, it removes time and energy from things that could be. There's just so much more you could be doing, and I'm wasting my time writing emails back and forth. Like, yes, just here's the money, give me the thing, whatever. And I don't like that. I'd rather not have to do that at all.
That's interesting to hear. We get stuff through Canada coming into the States, and I have a huge advantage by it coming US mail versus UPS for other reasons. But like I didn't like everything we ship to Canada, we ship USPS into Canada, but I hadn't heard of issues with one versus the other. Maybe it's that dollar amount is what the holdups is. But I know shipping dry medical goods into Canada have several times been held up, where end user actually has to go and explain to customs why they are getting bandages shipped in, and then they want to discuss, are you a firearms owner? Like that shit was happening as far back as like 4 or 5 years ago, even.
Yeah, and I mean that's because customs has no fucking idea,
right.
And I believe me, I know behind the curtains in the Canada Border Services Agency. I've been well behind the curtains there. The dollar amount for anyone who cares is $3,300 Canadian. If it's that value or higher, if it goes through USPS, it's going to be a problem to whoever receives it.
Good information.
If it's less, then it won't be. And I did not know that. Nobody knew that.
Now we're all changing the size of our packages in our heads.
So and that's the thing. It's going to be more than $2,500 American. Better send 2 packages. Problem solved. But and to just have to go through that exercise and like have that in the back of your head, it's a sort of shit that doesn't help anything. It's just bureaucratic nonsense.
Yep.
And whose life are we saving? What are we protecting is always the question. Like why are we doing this, right? So
it's funny. I once sent second day air USPS a document I had to sign because I used to run a nonprofit, and it was to somebody who was donating money to the organization. And it got so lost and so delayed in Canada that I calculated the Pony Express would have been faster.
So when you ship USPS and you're shipping next day or second day, all that means is that within the United States,
Right.
it gets to the border in that time. That doesn't mean anything. Like I could ship next day air to Germany, and it could still take 6 months to get to the end user in Germany. And your any tracking within the US system dies at the border once it hits customs.
It evaporates completely.
Mm-hmm. Yep. So looking at our news, Canada is, 2 steps removed from Nazi Germany with everything going on. I know we've talked before,
all the stuff hanging off the background here. Very, very bad. I'm basically a pirate. So I'm a licensed firearms instructor for the province of British Columbia, which means I went through all the training and certification to teach the Canadian firearms safety courses, which is what every Canadian needs to take and pass to legally own firearm in the country. And I mean, I teach those courses all the time, and they're not. It's not tactical training. This is safety training. Like I'm happy when people can just walk up to any, regular long gun and, basically prove that it's unloaded. That's the extent. So it's not like it's really high level, although it is broad. It's a 10-hour long course. But, when you've got the federal government effectively vilifying everybody who owns any kind of firearm now, like, oh, you've got a shotgun? No, criminal, right? Handguns? Whoa, criminal. It's like, you're right, John. Like I tell people this all the time. Look, if they'll take your shotgun, they'll take your Skidoo, they'll take your 4x4. They'll say, oh, you don't need that. And what you'll do? You'll be like, I guess I can't 4x4 anymore. And that doesn't make any sense to me, because literally it's required for a lot of the places where I go up. You're like, you're just not going there. But a lot of these policies are not coming out of any sort of sense of any consideration for rural Canada. And it's the same thing in America, right? The bullshit you're dealing with state by state comes out of the cities. It always does.
Yeah.
5% of the real estate controlling 95% of the population. Didn't you guys just have something happen in one of the courts? Maybe it was Quebec or somewhere, said, yeah, we're not doing any of that bullshit. That's not happening here.
Alberta.
Alberta. I was gonna say, it sounds like Alberta.
Yeah. And yay for them, frankly. Because what did you need? You need somebody to stand up and be like, this is effectively, this is tyranny actual is what it is. Like,
yeah. Okay, so you do firearms instruction. How popular has that? Has that like gone through the roof popular since 2020, or was it ramping up before? Was it like ramping up and then accelerated? How did that look?
You know how I was mentioning the whole Ukraine conflict panic buying situation where everyone wanted gas masks and potassium iodide? Yeah. 2020, everyone like, oh, we got to get guns. Cool. Okay. Right on. Are you going to go do any sort of realistic training with them? Nope. Right. And so still, even now, they're talismans. Okay. People will grab whatever talisman they can. Right? People will grab this talisman and be like, yes. Oh God. End of the world comes. Good to go. Got a gas mask.
Yep.
What? I need more? What? It's disposable? And so the problem with guns and up here, it's the same thing where people are like, yeah, we don't really need that. We better get that license because we're being, we think we won't be able to get it anymore. But beyond moose or deer hunting or elk for some people, there's certainly nobody up here in any sort of statistical sense thinking like, well, what we need to do is have, a certain amount of tactical training. We need to be able to shoot, move, communicate, and sustain. That's very unpopular. At best, what you get is it's really common for people to go out, work in the bush and, like when you're falling trees, right? One guy is falling the tree and the other guy basically stands at his back with a shotgun in case a grizzly bear comes to eat you.
Right.
That's normal. Like, that's just fucking normal. So like shotguns, and I've always got, I train in tactical response, and the Americans are all, AR-15s, and there's Ed Hubbell with a pump action shotgun all the time. And I'm fine with the shotgun. Shotgun is just fine. But I've spent 35 years shooting shotguns.
Ammunition available for you guys?
Yeah.
Yeah, but what?
Well, I mean, don't go buy a new truck. Buy ammo, right? Like it's expensive.
Got it.
Yeah.
We've always been able to get it. Even when you guys had the big crunch where you couldn't get anything, a lot of our ammunition sources came from Europe, and Europe never had that, right? And so,
right.
A lot of that stuff was still available. But you have to remember, there's effectively no AKs in the country, and there were really never that many ARs. And so the type of ammo we were shooting was, hunting ammunition, a little bit of 410, hard to find, and 410 is very expensive for the capability you get out of it. There's no doubt about it. Like I would say it's overpriced for what you can do with it. I'd say 12 gauge is the new 410. And
you need to have your t-shirt. 12 gauge is the new 410.
That's not a bad idea.
You need to do a drop shipping arrangement, apparently, because you hate shipping, though.
Yeah, but the thing about shipping, and this is something that I've always, growing up in a small business where we focused on really high quality, and we really narrow focused to higher echelon of buyers. So we're custom design goldsmithing where everything's one of a kind. We weren't doing the mall jewelry stuff. One thing that my father taught me was really good packaging. And so the advantage that I get by not drop shipping is that I get to put the really nice tape on the box. I get to put a handwritten note in. I get to put some stickers in. People like that shit. Mm-hmm. It's just that, it's that extra thing. And so for that reason, drop shipping is like, I don't know. I understand from the financial standpoint that drop shipping makes a lot of sense, and I won't say it won't. It doesn't, except for all of last year, maybe. Except for when you have supply chain issues, and frankly, I mean, I feel like we're in North America. We're getting to a point where everyone's really happy to sort of accept that China's not our friend. Like if you're buying your products, if they're all coming from China, and I mean some of it has to, that's fine. But if all your stuff's coming from China, it's built to fail for you. So enjoy that. But B, you're at some level, you're arming the enemy. And that's going to become a very real thing at some point in probably all our lives. So there's an advantage in sort of, as much as a person can, separating from that system.
Yeah, I think that's really true. I know, because my business is also mail order dependent. Once I figured out how and what fits in what size thing, as long as it goes through my system, it's not a big deal. The minute anything's outside of scope, it'll take me 3 to 4 weeks to get that thing shipped. But all of the things that are ready to go, it's pretty easy to do, which is why I actually end up drop shipping for some other people when they brand my stuff.
What would be an example of that, if you don't mind sharing?
Okay, so if I need to ship coffee and a cookbook to Australia, because I only ship in the US or APO, FPO, those sorts of addresses, because I'm using USPS, I have to work through the customs situation. And it's a weird size box, right? Because I don't usually pair books with coffee. And so getting that done often requires that I actually get in my car and go to the post office. Well, that's 25 miles away. And so that's where the block comes in. Wherein when I ship anything else from here, even a couple of pounds of coffee international, because I can do the customs form on my system, it fits in the right size box. I can get the custom form done. My mailman's willing to pick it up because we have a relationship, and that'll just get done.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's it's just the weird stuff, or like special breakable things that need extra padding. But if it's 2 pounds of Hollow Roast Dark, I can get that out the door in, less than 2 minutes.
One thing that sort of all three of us have, I think, and you correct me if I'm wrong, is an appreciation for putting things up for sale that you actually have, products you actually have. And one thing I did not want to do was, because I ran into the problem really early with the web store, Jason Routeboard. Really early with the web store, where I would be like, yeah, no, this is available. There's a couple week delay or whatever, and then it was a month. I was like, ooh, yeah, no, and I was just like, listen, I'm not, it's a crazy world. I'm not holding your money till this gets here. I'm just going to refund you. You can buy it if you want or not. I don't care when the shit shows up. And so very quickly, I transitioned to a model where, like, if it's on my web store and you can add it to cart, it's literally in stock. It's under and that is it. And there's a couple of things like, the new expensive thermal, monoculars, which are, $5,000, $6,000, $10,000. A bunch of those are not under my roof. Those are special orders, but it's really clearly listed there. But anything else where it doesn't say, hey, like, you're gonna have to wait, it ships immediately because I have it. And I don't want to go away from that. I really like having that level of control where, like, I've got. Now, obviously, it means there's a lot of inventory being held.
Yep.
Fortunately, all the shit that I'm being held is also, it's also really good preparedness items. And so, like, if the world were ever to go to hell and all of a sudden now I can't ship any of it and I have to use all of it, well, I have it under my roof, so
it's good to go.
Do you have any private?
I'll be trading people coffee for everything else. That's my plan.
You'll get a lot done for coffee.
Yep.
Do you have any private groups? Do you have any memberships?
No.
Why?
Oh.
I knew at some point on here you were going to give me one of those.
It's the break your balls time with John Willis. Let's go.
It's not, because if you're not selling product, which you're not, obviously, I mean, not a lot, where is your money coming from, right? So if you don't want to work the job you were doing and you want to do this, the more money you have, the more of this you're going to be able to do, right? And the information you're putting out is valuable. So I would imagine that if you met up every day at 6 o'clock on a Sunday, you would have 100 people willing to show up for that are willing to pay, $5 a month to have access to that and have those conversations. And those people would also get first, dibs on the product that you do have available.
Yep. Yeah. And you make a compelling point, because, like, right now it's a Shopify web store. And I mean, we only started it this year. So where it goes from here is, very steerable. And if that were to change to something where, like, it was member access only, not available to the public, it actually wouldn't hurt my feelings that much. So I guess if you're in the chat, thumbs up in the chat if you want that. But it's important that everybody here knows that, like, John and I have known each other for a few years. We've met in real life, and John has definitely been a motivating factor in me deciding to become more available to the public, because I've been doing what I do for a long time, sort of behind the scenes and really quietly. And so a lot of what's happened this year has been, it's a bold new world. Like, it's all discovery. It's like, okay, how much do I want to show people, right? Like, the idea of showing people what the inside of my garage looks like, so that, that I might violate some infosec about myself or whatever for years, was like, nope, not doing that. Just not doing it. And I mean, even for this, like, all the stuff you can see in the background, I mean, I spent an hour and a half going over that, sanitizing it, just making sure there wasn't anything I didn't want to see. So some of that is never going to leave me, and it does make me uncomfortable. And I do struggle with that because there's legitimately stuff about me, the world I operate in, and about my past that I'm just not going to put out in the public eye. But I want to balance that with, as much as I can, helping people out. And so, John, you've always said, like, just get out there and just do things. And you're right. Obviously, I can't argue with that. And a private members group, Sounds like a great idea. The only hang up would be the logistics of how to make that work and make it effective, and whether I had to market it or not.
So the information has no borders, right? You can talk to a guy in Ukraine, right?
Yep.
You could do a class on a day where you have 100 people in there, and you can show them how to put a tourniquet on.
Yep.
And then you can click through and you can bring them into your chat and have them put a tourniquet on, right? It's not going to be the same as in person, but it's going to be more than that person in Ukraine had from wherever they were getting it, right? And because they align with you and because they consume your content and they want to know you, that'll be worth $5 or $10 or whatever that is. You have a tourniquet seminar, it's 90 minutes or whatever it is, but that's just something you can do to a consumer all around the world. Because like maybe you can't ship them whatever into, Russia or Germany or wherever, but they can communicate with you still.
Yep.
Something I realized about you today, John, while I was roasting coffee was you're the guy who gives people jobs. So people come to you and they say, hey, I want a job. And you have a tendency to give people jobs. And if they don't do well, they're out, right?
Yeah, a lot of them.
I realized you give the rest of us jobs too. It's just not necessarily working for you. So you just gave him a job.
Well,
you spark it. Yeah, like you gave me a job with Self-Reliance Festival, right? You just give people jobs. You're good at it.
He has plenty of jobs. I just want to see him make money for what he's doing for free.
It's a good thing about you. It's not a bad thing. It's just funny because I realize it's beyond just you will give people a chance at your factory to take ownership for their life and start from the bottom up and learn commercial sewing, which is pretty cool. Not everybody will do that, right? And of course, along with that comes some tough love when people aren't doing well, but it's just that spark in you that comes out to the world, which it's pretty cool. That was my epiphany I have an epiphany while roasting every day, and that was today's epiphany, roasting epiphany.
That's what happens when you don't have things in your ears. When you're listening to you instead of this, your life changes a lot.
Yeah.
I transitioned. I used to driving because lots of times I would get in my truck from Prince George, where I'm at, which is pretty north, and drive another 10 hours north to go do like a thing for an hour and then turn around and drive back. Lots and lots, like 1 million kilometers in the last sort of 10 years. And for a lot of that, I would just, it was just audiobooks or just, music. And the last year or 2 years, I transitioned and I do a lot when I'm in the truck. I do a lot more quiet time now. And I find the same thing that when I'm just driving and just sort of being there and just letting what thoughts, come, there's so much more. And I find myself, throwing the phone on and just like voice recording something real quick. Like a thought just hit me. I have to get that down. I can't pull over, but I got to do this. Right. And so creating that sort of that airspace where there's nothing going in there lets things that are in there come out. Freedom units. Fair enough. Whatever 1 million is in, down converted to freedom units, that many miles. It's a lot. That's a lot. And so, I completely agree with that. I mean, that being said, John, you walk around with, earbuds all the time, right? But I've heard you say on many occasions, like you'll go to the gym and put those things in just so that people don't interrupt you.
Yeah, even here, a lot of times I have them on just because they're going to say something to you that doesn't matter, right? And if it does matter, they're going to get your attention and say it to you anyways. So a lot of times I just have them in.
Yeah. That's a really good trick on an airplane too.
And it's not to ignore them, it's to keep me focused.
Yeah. Yep. I wear earphones on the airplane no matter what. Even if
I haven't been on an airplane since before COVID.
Really?
Same.
Yeah, the last one that I was on was coming back from the last time I was in Camden, which was right like in the end of January, just before COVID hit. That's the last airplane.
Now, wouldn't it be cool if you were in Camden in March in 2023?
Yeah, I want to drive though. I don't want to fly. So
okay.
All I'm trying to do is make those logistics happen. But it's not only on my radar; it's in my intention.
Yes, we should email some more about that because it would be cool to feature you at the festival.
Well, I mean, I tried to get there last year. I did
I remember.
madness. Yeah, that was.
They wouldn't let you in. That is what it is.
It is
well,
what
now
it is.
now they're sprinting backwards on that whole thing.
On everything.
It's interesting to watch, and nobody's saying anything about it, of course.
I'm not sprinting backwards on it. I'm exactly where I was last year and the year before.
Mm-hmm.
My opinions haven't changed, and frankly, I don't have a lot of forgiveness in me for the bullshit that's gone on. So.
Yep. Apparently, Amanda uses the headphone trick too.
Yeah, legit.
So you're tied in pretty tight with Mira Safety. They do gas masks and respirators for people that don't know. How did that come to be?
My friend, Blue Line Syndicate, dude, the guy who does a lot of the film where I'm at, and lots of the photography. He was already working with them, helping them to develop a few of their products. Just because he's like that. And
so are they a Canadian-based company?
They're American. Yeah, that's like the worst best kept secret about Mira Safety is their two of their top experts that deal with them are a couple of guys from northern British Columbia in Canada.
Nothing wrong with that.
It's just American companies like to have American tactical people being featured, and who are these two dudes from northern BC. I've done so much hazardous material and SCBA and PAPR stuff and gas mask stuff in the last 20 years that I know a gas mask when I see one. I know my way around them. And when Mira sort of came on scene, is like, we're gonna give military grade, and I'm gonna put a little air quote under there, but they're effectively military grade. They're at least a good compromise. Gas masks, and make them available to civilians for like not highway robbery prices, right? So like the real military grade stuff, the Avon stuff that everyone uses, the mask is $1,200, the PAPR is $3,500, and like this brand new Mira Safety mask is $500. And so A, they'll sell it to civilians. B, it's a lot less money, so it's sort of within the realm of availability to civilians. And so I like all those things. Now, again, and I tell people this all the time, and John, you and I have gone back and forth joking about this. Like, these things, most people will buy these and think, okay, we're good. I mean, this thing's good to go. But in the real world where we're using these, especially if it's chemical warfare agents or toxic industrial chemicals, toxic industrial materials, we use them and then we throw them out. They're done. You don't wash them. You don't do any of that crap. And so kind of what I want to do with the whole sort of gas mask phenomenon is inject a little bit of realism into it and be like, listen, you need if you're gonna have a gas mask, you better have a shaving cream and a rinse with it, because it don't work. And dudes will be promoting this particular brand. And I have no problem with that, but they'll be promoting it on the internet and they'll put it on with their beard on. They'll be like, I can still get a seal. And it's like, okay, but you're standing, breathing oxygen. When a lot of these really aggressive, chemicals, the molecule size is so much smaller. It can just wick inside. And when you have to do shit wearing a gas mask, like crawl through confined spaces, fight fires, pull trees down, rip people out of vehicles, enter and egress into small areas, your body moves, right? You can't eat with it. Yeah, that's a good point. You can drink with these. They do have a drinking tube, and that's something. But by the time that you've unhooked this in a contaminated area, hooked it into your drinking source, you've now contaminated your drinking source. There's really no good solution for that. And the other thing is, a lot of these chemicals, the oil-based ones, like where they're viscous and thick, they will whip up your hairs with capillary action, no matter what kind of a seal you can attain. And so if I can bring just that message to people, will be like, yes, it's good, but it's a compromise. And your best defense against all this gas mask shit is not needing a gas mask, is not being where you need a gas mask. Vaseline in emergency to make a seal doesn't work in an emergency. It
So
works
what about
in non-emergencies.
what difference does the positive pressure system make? How much does it change that?
Order of magnitude. Order of magnitude. And then as long as you're not moving or puffing enough to defeat that positive pressure, right? Because if you're moving and it's not making a seal and a little bit of air is getting in, then you're being exposed. And understand that it's a game of numbers. Like if a little bit of some toxic chemical is sort of leaching in, it may not be enough to knock you out. It may not be enough to kill you. It may not be enough to do anything while you're doing what you need to do. But it might be enough to fuck you up for the rest of your life, 6 months down the road.
Why don't you explain to them why don't you tell them what a PAPR is for anybody listening that doesn't know? All they know is the term gas mask.
So positive air pressure system, positive air pressure respirator, positive air pressure or positive air protection. So PAPR is effectively a fan that hooks two of the PAPR. You've got a PAPR, but anyways, it takes a couple of the filters, you hook it up to a pack that has a fan that sucks air through, pumps it up through those and into your mask. And so if you imagine, normally what you're going to do is you're going to hook your filter up to this mask and you're going to breathe in. And even the best filters, and Mira has good filters. We've cut them open. I've examined them with X-ray fluorescence to see what the metals that are in them is. They're quality. Even with the best filters, you suffer from 30 to 50% reduced effectiveness of breathing. It means it's that much harder for you to take every breath you're taking. Now, if you go and do a bunch of deadlifts wearing a gas mask, or walk up a hill with a rucksack on wearing a gas mask, you realize really quickly that you actually want that 30 to 50% breathing capacity to be able to do that shit. So that's a pain in the ass. But if you have a PAPR, it's got a battery pack and it effectively does that work for you. It pushes that air in. And then when John's talking about positive pressure, the other advantage that it has is as that comes in, any extra air that's there is going to push out the seams. As air is pushing out, whatever the material is or the toxin, it can't make its way in because it can't go against the airflow, typically speaking, unless you're in a hurricane or unless you're in something where there's more air pressure or volatility on the outside than your PAPR generates, right? And so that's a limitation of the system, is that like your positive pressure isn't infinite positive pressure. It's infinite positive pressure by comparison to still air in the outside environment.
So for guys that have never worn a gas mask that think I'm just going to put this thing on when I need it, you don't even have to do it with a gas mask. You can just get a breathing plate that has some restriction to air. Wear that while you're sitting in your office doing nothing. Wear that for about 30 minutes. You'll feel it for the next week. You will think that you have something wrong with your lungs. You will think that you have pneumonia coming on just from that 30 minutes of air restriction. It's greater when you put on an actual respirator that is not a positive pressure. And I'm not trying to sell you these. I'm just making you aware that they are there. For all you guys that have a gas mask sitting folded in half in the bottom of your rucksack with a bunch of shit on top, you're in for a rude awakening.
I think they're great for if you need it for 10 minutes to get you out of a shitty situation, rock and roll. It's good for that. But like if you needed it for 2 hours to get you out of a shitty situation, I would like you to look at your logistics and think, in this emergency, what's a better, more effective way to get me out of this situation faster? And I think that would be a better priority. And
real stuff, military type stuff. If you need a gas mask, you have a whole entire suit that has to go with that as well.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. And I mean, Mira sells suits made by, I think, Kapler. I'll have to double check. But any Tycam suits. So they sell suits, and same deal for, I think, 178 Canadian dollars. You can get one of these, and then you have one exposure to this to whatever the potential toxin is. Right now, if you've got the suit, now you have to have the gloves. You got to have butyl rubber gloves. You got to have the boots. The fact of the matter is, if you're going to be going into one of these situations, everything that walks into that zone is contaminated by definition. Your backpack is contaminated. Your plate carrier is contaminated. Your rifle is contaminated. Okay, your like everything. And so you have to be able to decon anything that you want to use after you get out of that situation, or have it set up so that it doesn't get contaminated. It's all wrapped in plastic. So there's a shitload of layers here, and gas mask is a great tip of the iceberg thing. But like you mentioned, when you're talking about this or preparing for it, it's a system. And if it's not a system, it's nothing. It's a talisman.
So what applications would a normal man have where he could just use a gas mask? What would that work for?
Wildfire. Yep.
CS
wildfire.
gas.
What's that?
CS.
CS gas. Yep. Although if you're in a riot situation, then that's cool. Go clean shaven. Like before you get into your riot, please shave your beard. And if you have the time to shave your beard, maybe while you're doing that, you can think about whether you want to go be in that riot or not.
Because that is the other side of that. Why would you want to be in a riot?
Yeah, fuck yeah. But I mean, CS gas, sulfur dioxide, even if you're just doing industrial painting, spraying of whatever, if you're spraying chemicals, for pest control or vegetation control. Good day from Australia. So those are all great reasons. There's probably, like, everyone's situation is a little bit dependent, but and again, I have no issue with people buying them. I just have issue with people buying them to solve an entire problem set.
I think
seems
a lot
like
of it.
I like to look at those things where, what's the most likely thing I'm protecting against? Is it a wildfire? Okay, what do I need for the wildfire, and what else does that help with long term? But do I really need a full protection suit living in the holler? I mean, if I do, I'm like, there's some other bigger problems going on too, and am I not better focusing on surviving those? I don't know. It's kind of one of those things.
If you need a full protection suit to live where you're at, and for everybody, then what you also need is the ability to put barrier film up on every one of your windows, all your doors. You need the ability to control how the air exchanges in and out of your home or domicile or wherever you're at. You need the ability, while you're inside your house for however long you have to be able to eat, sleep, heat, drink, and shit. Okay?
So I need to move.
Has to be figured out. Yeah, and in situations where people are crammed in together and they can't get out, the number one killer of people is dysentery or disease, and that comes from not having a management system for pooping.
Yep.
It's a big fucking deal. Big deal, right? And so like it's an entire system, and that's why I say, like, they're used, like, for everyday stuff, for wildfire. If you live in an industrial part of the world, like there's some sort of there's a chlorine plant nearby or something like that, where, like, it could rupture and there could be a chlorine cloud that comes through one day.
Yeah.
Yep. I have all over my house, I have fire extinguishers mounted to the wall, and attached to every fire extinguisher is a tourniquet, an IFAC, and a gas mask, right? Because if your house is on fire, you fucking need to breathe. And you might need to do a little medical shit, but you probably need to get out of your house. And the same thing applies if you're living in an industrial area where, there might be some chlorine gas or some, sulfur dioxide in a cloud that comes as a vapor, where you just, like, put a gas mask on for 20 minutes and then, air your house out and things are good to go. That's a realistic scenario. I like to say that, like, from an emergency preparedness standpoint, Murphy's Law always applies, right? And the thing about Murphy, he's an asshole, and he's going to give you the emergency that you didn't prepare for. So if you are good to go for a flood, like, it doesn't matter, there's no way a flood can get you, well, you're getting a lightning strike. Like, that's what's going to happen, right?
Yeah.
And like if your house is made of concrete, fucking, you're good to go. There's no way that a fire can burn it down. Like, some other shit's going to happen. Someone's going to drive right into that motherfucker. Like, you're getting the emergency that you didn't prepare for. So all the preparedness that we do basically comes down to like, what do I really not want to have to deal with? And let me just really prepare for that. And that means I'm probably never going to have to deal with it. And then I can, the emergency that comes is going to be some lesser emergency. And so like, I like from that standpoint, like, I never want to have to deal with a nuclear disaster. Cool. I'm good to go for that. All right. Moving on.
Next.
Give me some lesser emergency.
Will those masks work in a chlorine environment, or will the chlorine not displace oxygen? So while it might filter it, there's nothing left to breathe there. Is that not the case?
Yeah. If whatever the toxin is, if it displaces oxygen, there's no replacement for fresh oxygen. Yeah. There's one sort of little caveat. So Mira had, and it was made in Russia, so they don't have them available anymore. The Russians have a filter cartridge that will convert smoke, like CO2, into oxygen for a short period of time.
Because most of those guys are running like oxygen assist with those, right?
Exactly.
For like low oxygen, like clandestine labs and stuff like that. They're running the system, but it also has oxygen infused, a line with it.
Self-contained breathing apparatus. Or if you're going in as a group, as a team, you might have an air source outside and then everyone going in on a line. Yeah.
Those are mostly like Draeger systems they're using.
And that, yep. Like industrially, I've been hooked up to those systems and gone into some pretty shitty places like thallium plants, lead plants, places where it's pyrophoric sulfur and, one spark and everything blows up. Confined spaces where you're basically hung upside down to go, look at a thing, and you have to be on supplied oxygen, and it's a real thing. It is a giant pain in the ass, and I mean, I think I'm really confident in saying if you're not trained on it and practiced on it, like if your training isn't realistic, relevant, and recent, you're not prepared to just go do that. It's a mess to get in. It's a mess to get out. That you got all this shit on you. It really changes the dynamic of how you sort of operate in whatever environment it is. But yeah, they're absolutely available. And I mean, anyone who okay, I'll say this: if you want to get the experience of knowing what it's like to operate in a gas mask, go volunteer at a fire department. Just go find a local volunteer fire department and just go volunteer. And if you think you're going to be able to just, shoot, move, communicate, and sustain when the zombies are coming while you wear your gas mask, go sit there and watch the firefighter games one time and see what level of physical fitness that they practice up to just to put on turnout gear and a mask and self-contained breathing apparatus and just go do one specific thing, not a bunch of things, one thing.
And get yourself into a confined space class.
Oh, yeah. So yes, make it a good one. A lot of the industrial training now, because I was in it back when we still had to do that shit in training. Nowadays, when they teach that, a lot of classes, it's like they're going to tell you about how to do it, and nobody has to practice it. It's like going to a medical class where they're like, here's a tourniquet. We don't actually want to put it on because I don't want to hurt you, but there's how you put it on if you need to. It's not real training. So if you're going to do a confined space entry or like high angle rescue class, confined space rescue class, make sure that they're actually putting you in one, pulling you out of one, and you're going to pull somebody out of one. Then it's
watch how the firefighters how they bust through the walls and have to take their packs off to get through the 2x4s. Drag their pack through while still, breathing or holding their breath.
Yep. Like
it's pretty wild to watch that if you've never seen it.
Yep. I mean, I've crawled into pressure vessels where the opening is an oval opening and it's 16 inches wide by 10 inches tall. And like, I'm wider than 16 inches, but talking about firefighters where they can't see what they're doing, they don't have all the time in the world. What's the average distance between two studs in a wall? Well, it's 16 inches, right? And they're smashing through that. There's nails ripping all their stuff. They're trying to make sure it doesn't rip all of their life-saving equipment off of them. It's chaos, but if you can just do it, just train, just take that training one time, there's a lot of value in it.
Yeah. Caving too. You can get some of that through caving.
Yeah, absolutely. That's completely outside of my experience. I've never done anything in caves.
Well, we have a lot of it close here.
Oh, I was like, now you really need to come down.
Oh, okay. Hell yeah.
Yes, great caves in Tennessee.
I usually come when it's wintertime.
Because it's like summer here for you. When our winter's like this summer.
Yeah, except for this week. This week doesn't count.
We're supposed to have a low of 2 and a high of 8.
Nice.
Fahrenheit.
Legit. Yeah. No, I got that. Yeah, no, that's legit. Yeah.
He was talking to me in Celsius before we started recording. I was like, convert. Okay, got it.
Hit Douglas Ridge Farms there. Highlight his there.
Oh yeah, that's a good question. I was waiting until we finished on the gas mask off. So any advice for new content creator on gaining a little traction on YouTube?
So make sure what you're doing, people want to watch it, right? Because if you're doing the right shit, the right people will show up. So if you want people to be interested in what you're doing, do interesting things. And then make sure your channel, right? People hit me up all the time and they're like, hey, if you send me this thing, I'll review it. And then when I look at their YouTube page, they have 10 subscribers. If I send you product, if you bought product from me and reviewed it and used your hashtags correctly and used my company name, the people looking for me will find your video. You'll gain 100 viewers just from that. I'm not telling you buy my product. Can you get on live?
I'll buy his product.
No, you probably can't. We sell everything we make. Just get on and do lives, right? Do something interesting. Hit up other guys doing live feeds. Get them to bring you on. Make sure that you mesh and you have something to conversate about. And some of their followers will follow you. If you do really good shit and you really want to get people's attention, take people with big audiences and tag them in your posts. But if you tag me in your post, you have to have my product in your post or something that aligns with some message I saw. Take content I made that aligns with what you believe and share my content. You will get my attention. If you share my product and you have 10 competitors' products in there, I'm never going to share your content, at least not that content. So just get with people that you align with, share their information, and then make video similar and then tag them in it. You will grow quickly.
Ed, you got anything to add?
SOE tactical gear.
But do that with anybody, right? If you want to get their attention. If you have a freeze dryer, start looking up Harvest Right, hashtag Harvest Right, and see what other people are saying and start sharing and taking their hashtags, right? And then once you get to a certain level and you have an actual business social media account, then you can start putting money behind to grab eyeballs.
Yep. The other thing I would add is be consistent, whatever that means for your channel. And if it's a weekly video, make sure it comes out every week. As a person who, because I have a consistent podcast, I have consistent stuff on my YouTube. Otherwise, I wouldn't at all. But it started growing when I started consistently every week doing these episodes, and I do some additional things. I've played with YouTube Shorts a lot in the last couple of months. I don't know if you've been messing with those, John, very much. They get a lot of views. Like, they 10x my other videos all the time. But I haven't found that brings me much benefit.
Yep. So I listened.
They get viewed, but they don't call to action.
Because it's that 10-second boom, boom, boom. Yeah. The person watching that's just doing this. Yeah. But I heard you on Jack's show talking about not getting much out of TikTok. But what I would say to that is you get the most out of Facebook because you've had a footprint on Facebook the longest.
Yeah, that's probably
people,
true.
They already trust you. They already know you. They've met you in real life. They know that they can believe what you're saying. Whereas the Instagram audience is a younger audience. They're looking for flash and pretty pictures. But there are people there that are also from Facebook that are following both contents because the hashtags and things work better on Instagram. TikTok's newer. It's faster. It's quicker. Yeah. But I do find people come over to my memberships on YouTube because they want to have a more real conversation. And they say, hey, I saw you on TikTok.
Yeah, I'm not growing as fast on TikTok as I typically do on other social platforms. But I agree with you. The quality of the interaction I get on TikTok is much higher.
And so when I look at, go ahead.
I just look at the conversion rate there, and it's higher on TikTok. So, even though it's not growing my audience as fast, I think ultimately it's worth putting the time in. And I'm probably not doing it the best way yet because I'm still messing with that platform.
And it depends what you're using it for too, right? So when we do a new bag, like we just did the war bag.
Yeah.
I'll take 6-7 pictures of the war bag and then a couple of, 5-second video clips so that it moves. And on TikTok, I'm going to use the music. Eventually they're going to unmonetize it, but I lost nothing from it because I'm going to gain, because that video, just like doing reels on Instagram, it doesn't matter if they take the music off because there was no audio to it anyways. I don't lose anything, but I gain a lot because the program, when you build the reel, that footage moves to the beat of the music. So you're going to capture a lot more people. And when people are interested in watching it, it's going to put it higher up in the algorithm and they're more apt to hit the share. So while people, I hear a lot of social content people saying, do not use the music. I don't agree with it because it's a very temporary thing. If you've noticed when you do lives on Facebook now, you have to actually push a button for it to stay on there. Otherwise it disappears after 30 days. Why is everybody making short form content? Because they don't have to host it once it disappears. That short form content, once it's gone, it's not stored there. They don't have to keep that shit anymore. And dudes aren't putting up 5-minute videos on TikTok anymore. They're putting up 10-second videos. So they don't have to have as many servers to hold all that shit.
Yep. So those are all great ideas for growing as a new content creator. I think being interesting is probably the best piece of advice John gave out of his whole thing, and that takes time. Like your first 10 videos might not be while you figure out how to be interesting, and just keep going. I've seen a lot of people who have started channels in the last 6 months on similar topics with similar interests, who've maybe met each other in person at events or hang out in the same communities, develop a weekly show or a weekly gathering where some group of them gets together and they stream on all of their channels at one time. That seems to work really well because they're building each other up and they're cross-pollinating. And so that's another thing you can do is look for your peers and say, hey, let's do a monthly whatever. Like I'd love to get Amy Dingman back on and have another, Spicy Sisters bitch fest because people think it's hilarious and we have fun doing it and it cross-pollinates our audiences. So.
And make sure your message is real. You can put some bullshit out there that's shocking and grab, 1,000 new followers. But 95% of those guys are going to fall off when they realize that's not what all your content is also. And when you do lives, I like 3, 4 is kind of pushing it. I wouldn't do a live that has like 10 people for me because you're going to have an anchor. And if you're trying to help out the guys with lesser content, that's great. But you're going to end up with 1 or 2 people talking and the other guys just kind of awkwardly sitting there. Nicole's really good about running a live feed. Like if it was me and 2 other dudes, half the time we just sit here and look at each other. Nicole's really good about keeping the conversation going.
I ask questions because I always want to know why. It goes back to that fire. Like when you were talking about take that fireman training class thing, I started thinking about how fast they say that you need to get out of your house if it catches on fire, you're dead anyway.
Yep.
And then you look at the movies and it's like they spend 10 minutes rescuing people. I'm like, those people were dead.
Yeah. James, when people moved to Camden, the first thing James would give them for Christmas was fire alarms.
Oh, yeah.
And he says, I always give people things for Christmas that they won't buy, but they need. And that is something and like low O2 sensors, right? Yep. So people, that's something everybody can get, but look around right now, everybody watching. Do you see a fire alarm within your vision right now? Because the chances are most of you are like, no, I don't see one. And for $15, you can put that motherfucker in your house. You could go to Walmart and buy 20 of those things and give them to everybody for Christmas gift. Not the coolest thing, but it's fucking usable. I'm very guilty of that. I have fire extinguishers everywhere. I also, to what you said, I add a light to everyone, Ed, but I also have a light in all of my pockets. But I also have 20 fire extinguishers in here. They're still in the box, right? Go open that. And then also, how many of you have ever actually sprayed a fire extinguisher? Yeah. And what you have this perception that it will put out is very different from what everybody gets these real convenient little like, spray can looks like a can of cooking Pam, right? Pam cooking spray. It doesn't put shit out. Like
those are designed to put out frying pan fires.
Yes.
So, the 10-inch fire. That's what those are designed for.
And those mats are really good too that you can have and deploy right by the stove too. There's so much shit. Everybody wants to get, 12 AR-15s that you've never shot, and you bought the shittiest ones in the world, so they don't even fucking work. But you don't have fire extinguishers and you don't have fire alarms. It's that foundation, right? It's that pyramid. All that base stuff down here, we want to jump right up to the top. That gas mask, super sexy, looks cool. No matter who's wearing it, the gas mask always gets attention.
Yep.
But you have a 100th of a 1% of actually using that. But how many people, everybody on this live right now knows somebody who has had a house fire. Everyone does.
Yeah.
And the training's free. Like you can go to NFP, the National Fire Protection Association. They'll put you a free training course. They've got all sorts of them on their website to teach you how to use your fire extinguishers, where to put your fire extinguishers, how to, what to make up family plans. Like this shit's all easily available in the sort of forest that is the internet of information. All a person has to do is decide, like, you know what? I should probably start.
Yeah.
Start?
Yeah.
Just
That's
start.
my favorite word.
Like seriously, like take a step. I mean, and like fire extinguishers, bear spray, OC spray, all these sort of sprays that we keep around in case of emergency for whatever purpose, they all expire. And it's great when you have an expired one because it's an opportunity to practice and learn to see what they can do.
Yep.
Go set you a fire outside in the back where it's safe, a great big bonfire, and take one fire extinguisher, which it'll take you $20 to recharge it afterwards. It's no big deal. And go put that fire out if you can. And if you can't, you need a little more training. And that's how you learn it.
Yeah, I have a friend who lives in a barn dominium, and the barn itself is over 100 years old. So it's real dry hardwood. Okay. Her significant other was working on his car, and his car caught on fire in the barn. They go to start the tractor to pull it out, and the tractor breaks down. Of course, they've called the fire department, but she lives like I do. She went through 3 fire extinguishers, and that barn was just going up because it was so dry. Luckily, they did get the tractor to work finally, were able to pull the car out, and the fire department got there and put that fire out. But their fire extinguishers were not going to do it on the barn. And she was like, she's like, I got this text. She's like, I have resigned myself to the fact my entire life is burning up right now. And then luckily the fire department got there, but man, and those were big fire extinguishers. So even big ones may not save you.
That's Murphy's Law, right? You have the fire extinguisher, but the emergency you didn't expect was that it wasn't going to work.
Yeah.
And there's a big difference between commercial fire extinguishers are expensive.
Yep.
And you can buy the $25 one from Walmart. There's a world of difference in those things. And if you call there are still companies that come around and do service calls every quarter or every 6 months that do commercial fire suppression and fire extinguishers. And those guys will be happy to talk to you, even if you don't buy anything from them. And most of those companies have fire extinguishers that are out of inspection date, and they will be happy to pass them on to you at a very low cost. They still function. They just can't place them in commercial properties. Also,
that tip alone was worth this live stream because I didn't know that, and I'm totally going to do that now.
Also, I have a guy, Nicole.
Okay.
Also, all you guys with smoke grenades. Like when all you guys, I know because we were there, we were all together when we got a bunch of smoke grenades, and they were awesome. 2 years later, they don't work. We popped over 20 pieces of pyro a couple of weeks ago, and 16 of them did not fire. The primer popped, super loud, no smoke came out of any of those devices, multiple brands. So test your shit, be aware of it. If your plan is military aircraft always lands on red during emergency and you pop that, they don't put out smoke. You're fucked at that point. You better start lighting a fire.
Yep, that's legit.
Funny how that works.
Water pumps. Everybody's like our fire department here, because we're rural. They don't put your fire out. They keep your neighbor's shit from burning down. They put water on your shit to keep it from catching other shit. At the end of that night, you're not going back in that structure, right? So if your plan is to fight your own fire, you better test that water pump every quarter, just like your generator. You better test that thing and have it in functioning, running condition. And what if it's freezing when your fire catches, right? What if your water source is froze up?
Yeah.
Like, you need a plan other than just accumulating equipment, which I'm good at. I'm very good at accumulating shit.
Yep.
I am not good at maintaining shit.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, for probably everybody listening now or in the future, fire is your number one threat to your sort of safe space domicile. Wherever your nest is, fire is the number one threat. So from inside or outside.
So Jason says, yes, Halon fire extinguishers. Now, I know they use Halon in all the race trucks, right? But Halon works by displacing oxygen so that the fire can't burn. And what that means is you also can't breathe at the same time. So maybe a fire on the stove in the kitchen or something, that's great. But how much Halon can you pump into a room before you can no longer be in the room also? And I don't know the answer to that.
Yeah.
I also don't know. Never thought about it. Yeah. Never thought about it.
The turbines, which a lot of them come out of old recycled Concorde engines, which power the natural gas compressors that run the system that I work on. They all use halon-based fire extinguishers. And the thing is, when there's a fire in the compressor station, the blast doors come down, and if you're still inside, then you're running. There's oxygen tanks, but I mean, the thing's on fire. It was on fire for everything to come down, so you're probably dead. Yeah. They're legit systems. They'll put out some fire really fast, but you best be having a plan to get some oxygen in your body, because there's no oxygen available. That's how those systems work.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, A-Ray Pierce says they also use halon in data centers and alarms to get you out, because you're going to die if you're there. Fire will be out, and so will you.
And the halon leaves no residue. Is that correct? I think the halon it's just gas, right? So there's not a cleanup afterwards.
Yeah, no, it just displaces it.
Yeah, you guys should go take a fire extinguisher and light it off in your living room and see how that works for you. You will be very surprised.
No, don't do that. You know, if you do that, then you're bringing a carpet cleaner in next.
Yeah. It's funny as we go into this, because as much fire training as I've done now, I'm going to go take that class, because I'm realizing how much I don't know. And that's really super valuable for me. But it does bring me back to the point of, we're going into 2023. And a lot of people are like, I'm going to change my life in 2023. Do this. Choose the one thing that you're going to take a class on that you think you know about, that maybe you need to know more about, whether it's first aid training, gun training, fire prevention training, or what to do in the case of a fire, like any of these things, gym training, any of it. Make sure you do that at least once a year on something. You can do it more than once a year, but if you just do it once a year, it's a start. And I mean, Ed, you said just start, right? What's it going to take? A weekend of your life? Do you have a weekend to give? Which weekend can you give? Choose another one to start documenting your stuff. Because the other biggest issue I see with preppers, I got my pen here with my little notebook, is if everything burned, can you access your bank accounts? Important copies of legal documents so that maybe you can have an identification again. Ways to contact relatives if your phone burned up in that fire, like all of those things that we don't think about, or we know we need to document, but we put it off. Like, what's that looking like? How are you going to access your crypto keys? If you keep cryptocurrency, is it in a fireproof safe? What if it burns in the fireproof safe, right? Because that can happen. Yep. What's your backup plan? And have you done that yet? If you haven't, it's time to build that into your life. Even if it's an hour every Saturday for the first 6 Saturdays of the year, that's 6 hours of time. You can totally make that happen. Whatever your Saturday looks like. If you work on the weekends, your Saturday might be Thursday. I don't care. Right.
And if you're going to take a training course or attend a conference, or like Self-Reliance Festival is a good example, the just start is to, like, now block the time off. Like pay for it. That's just starting. I don't care if it's in September and you're not going to do it until then. Pay for it now. Because if you wait until, August, you're not doing it. Something else is going to come up. Hell, if you wait until next week, something else is going to come up. So do it now. And I would prefer that everybody take, if you don't already have it, take medical training, learn how to, like what to do in the first 10 minutes of a traumatic event. And I'm not talking about the Red Cross, except for CPR and AED training, which is really valuable. But for dealing with massive bleeding, airway issues, circulation, hypothermia is a big killer of people, both pre and post hospital, and shock. And so learning how to deal with that now, that's probably the thing that most people are going to have to address at some point in their lives.
Yeah.
After that, you should definitely get yourself squared away to be able to put out a little house fire, or have a plan to call the fire department. Because the worst thing that you can do is have never practiced making a good 911 call in the one time you need to make a good 911 call.
Yeah.
It takes practice and forethought to do that effectively, to know what you're going to say, to get the right type of hero to show up at your emergency for you, rather than the wrong type or the right type later. And so people can figure that out beforehand and save themselves a lot of headache if they have to call for someone else to come back them up. Then that's,
and don't get mad at the operator when they ask you questions that you think are dumb. Just answer, because like they have a set number of questions they have to ask that if you don't answer them or you delay answering them, you're just delaying the help.
A lot of that, like, your 911 operators at this point know exactly where you are, whether you want them to or not.
They may already have somebody on the way when they're asking those questions.
A lot of that is to keep you calm and to get, the information. A lot of that is for your doing.
Refuge Medical is doing a class right on the Friday before Self-Reliance Festival. Tickets will go on sale on January 1st. I'm not selling them before then, just for obvious reasons, but that's a class, if you're coming to SRF, that you can take. And if we fill up class 1, we will do a second one that same day.
Refuge will be here.
Refuge and Iridium Solutions, we cross promote each other because we're very ideologically aligned. And they don't want to come to Canada where they can't wear guns. And I'm in Canada. So and I'm happy. I'm going to go train with them first opportunity that I can. But before we get past the 911 call, part of this, which is the course I teach to civilians, there's like 2 pages in the back that teach you how to make a good 911 call, because all the things you're talking about dispatchers is right. And the reason that the dispatcher, if you're on a 911 call and the dispatcher has to ask you a bunch of questions that you think are really dumb, is because you didn't tell them that information when you started.
Yep.
Like, you could have started that phone call as soon as it connected by listing here, who, what, where, when, why, what do I need? Tell me when it's arriving. And then the rest of that phone call will just be them being like, hey, I just want to make sure nothing's changed. Hey, I just want to make sure nothing's changed. How's Tom? Is Tom still up? Yeah, Tom's still good. Anything new? Is there anyone? Like then it's just, they're not asking you any more questions, because you can deliver that information clearly, concisely, calmly, demonstrate that you're in control of the situation. And then it's a whole different paradigm when you are dealing with whatever the emergency is, because you're calm, you're in control of the emergency, the level of the emergency comes down, and B, the right help, the right heroes, the right response show up where you need them and when you need them, and they know what to do. So
do you have gates? Do you have dogs? What color are your driveway markers? I mean, all kinds of shit. We all cross promote Refuge Medical. Bear, I think Bear's going to be here presenting again. Jason, his wife is a 911 operator. Your eyes were opened a lot when she took the job. What jumps out the most? Give me 2 or 3 examples of what we might not know that surprised you.
Yeah,
that'll take him a minute.
Yeah, take him a minute. So while we're there, K-Bonk asked a while ago, what powers those NG stations? Electric. I don't know what that's about, but.
So yes, electricity is in the natural gas.
Oh, natural gas. I was like, what's the NG?
Yeah. Yes. Those turbines, they're electric, but also there's electricity, but we've also got, in the lines that we have here, we have 800 and 900 PSI of natural gas firing through the line. We just burned some of that, and there's lots of energy there.
So is that above ground, or is most of that below ground, Ed?
Mostly below ground.
Right.
Yeah. But you would think it'd be buried really deeply below ground.
3 feet.
Yeah.
Yeah. I know that because we've cut ours 7 times.
We try not to cut his now when digging.
We had an explosion here in 2018, about 7 kilometers from where I'm at now, where the 36-inch line, which is old. It's 70 years old, which is 30 years past its life expectation. It ruptured and exploded, and I actually watched it happen from my backyard. Watched the flames come up, and what had happened was an integrity crew who go along and dig up portions of the pipeline, expose it, test it, make sure it's still good. They had gone in and they had prepared to do an integrity dig in that location, and then left for lunch. And just their vibrations of driving in was enough to set that thing off. And luckily nobody died. But it's the pipelines are really close to the surface, and the way that underground pipelines work, especially like where they have to go a long distance between compressor stations, is there's lots of above ground access points like block valves and crossovers, so that you can shut in sections of the line, move the gas from one line to the other line. And one is
they know within half a mile where you are if you use a cell phone. Yeah. They knew exactly where we were. We had a friend at one of my workshops accidentally just pocket dial 911, and they still have to send somebody out to make sure it's not a hostage situation. So the police came, and he knew where we were,
which is a super weird thing that you could pocket dial 911. Like, the randomness of that combination is just bizarre.
Yeah.
All you guys wearing Apple Watches, they know if you've been assaulted. They know when you fall down. The new iteration is doing this health and wellness check on you. If you had a mountain bike accident, for instance, if you spousal abuse is one of them. These devices that you wear, these monitoring devices, literally know fucking everything about you.
Yeah. So he's saying they know what kind of firearms you have and know how many people are in your family.
So in California, during the assault weapons ban, 89, 90, up until about, I think it was until about 2000, when the dispatcher would call, they would tell over the air, and this is prior to becoming a trunked system. You can still listen to it, but you can't hear it as easily. But the dispatcher, when they would dispatch law enforcement, would tell law enforcement what registered assault rifles you had in your house. And then gang members were coming and robbing after the fact and holding these people up and taking their assault rifles from them.
Yeah, Tactical says some phones have a button or an app that just calls 911. Mine has a quick dial for emergency, and I'm sure that's what happened to the person who pocket dialed 911. That was the day that I watched a dog run barking across the lawn towards the cop, and he just stood there and the dog bounced off his leg. And I'm like, any other location that dog would have been shot, but for some reason our police in our county know not to do that. So I was pretty happy with that guy. I was very thankful. So natural gas is a good backup home generator system, is it, if available? I assume that's a question mark. What's your thought on that, Ed?
Yes, asterisk. Because the prevailing information is that, well, the natural gas, there's going to be lots of natural gas in the lines, right? And like those will go for a long time. Yes, as long as there isn't a million people on that gas system pulling gas out of that line, because in that case, with nothing pushing it, it actually goes flat really fast.
Yeah.
So if you're in a rural area and you've got a compressor station sort of somewhat feeding you, you're probably going to have a bunch of time where you have gas. If you're in a sort of metropolitan area, no, fuck no, absolutely not. Not only that, but in the event of any sort of wide scale emergency, crews go out and turn off the natural gas at the block valves. Like I said, there's set distances down the line, and they'll just go start shutting it in, because it becomes a threat, an explosion hazard when there's nothing pushing it, when it doesn't have any pressure. And a lot of these compressor stations, they're not built to start fast or stop fast. And so if they stutter at all, they are at risk for blowing up and all the gas in the line blowing up with them. It's kind of like the electrical grid, right? Your grid and our grid. Yours is a little bit more robust than ours, but the fact of the matter is there's 1% to 2% of change in the grid, and the whole thing just sort of falls apart. It's great that it works, but that's not something that I would count on in an emergency. I would count on fuel you have stored on hand. But definitely, just like if like all the water is going out, they tell you to like put the stoppers in the bathtubs and fill up the bathtub so that you have water on hand before the water goes out.
Yeah.
If there's an emergency, yeah, go ahead and hook a pressure vessel up if you know how, and all that. Yeah.
The first time I recall, I'm 51. The first time I recall ever natural gas not working was this incident last winter before in Texas. That was the first I'd heard of it.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Now, keep in mind, people, like I know a lot of you guys listen to survival fiction. I say listen now, right? That shows now we don't read shit anymore. A lot of you guys do the survival fiction thing, and the natural gas is always there. And some of these big, huge, series, these multi-volume series, everything was in shambles in the world, but somehow they still had natural gas. That would be lovely. Not most likely the case. Also, if the powers that be separated, right? Let's say there was a separation of states. Your government can go along, your local government, it has to be at local level for the most part, but all your smart meters, like 15 years ago, well, less than 10 years ago, when we bought this property here, we did not have smart meters. We had normal metering. They knew every time a toilet flushed in the building, and they told me, hey, they have a printout. They brought me this huge printout. And they said, hey, this is a toilet somewhere in the building that is running. This is a toilet that was flushed. This is a hose. This is a faucet. They knew that shit back then. Now everything's computerized. They can look right online. So if, for instance, you had a warrant and you were held up in a house that's supposed to be vacant, for instance, they know whether those light switches come on. They know when a toilet is flushed. They know everything that happens. So for instance, if this shit had gone any farther than it did 3 years ago, and you didn't take their thing, they could just shut your services off. They don't even have to come to your house to shut your services off. So keep that in the back of your head. But yeah, the tri-fuel, somebody said tri-fuel. Tri-fuel is awesome. When you burn propane or natural gas, I don't know about natural gas, but propane, you get about 75% of the energy that you do over fuel. So a dual fuel, tri-fuel generator is awesome. Propane stores forever. Gasoline does not. You have to do a lot more shit to store gasoline. Just have redundancy. Right now you can buy, it's still a few $1,000s, but you can buy a cart with what looks to be a big generator and a firebox, and it's a wood gas fire. So it burns wood, converts the wood gas into fuel, and turns a generator that looks like a 3,000 watt Honda generator. Those are awesome. Like it's reality now. And if you go back to World War II, they were doing it in World War II. They were doing wood gas fires and running ambulances. You can see them on wartime farms and those KPBS shows, BBC shows. But it's just what's on your radar and what you're planning for. For every emergency I've been in my life, natural gas has still flowed. But what emergency are we preparing for? Like Ed said, the one you're prepared for is not the one you're going to have. So when that goes out, have a way to heat without natural gas, have a way to cook without natural gas.
Yep.
When the pipeline near here blew up, and I mean we had two pipelines running, but they're in the same right of way, which is the line that they go down. We had to turn off the other one just to make sure the integrity was still. We had to test the entire thing, and I was involved in all the testing and the rebuilding. But what happened, and it was in late October, early November, so winter time here. And these are the pipelines that go down and feed all the natural gas south, so into Vancouver and the couple million people there. And they weren't really getting gas from anywhere else. And immediately, like I said, we've got an oil refinery in Prince George. It's the smallest one in North America. It only has 10,000 barrels a day. But the next day after the rupture, they were no longer being served with natural gas. The utilities were like, sorry, we can't supply you natural gas because all the people in Vancouver are going to run out of natural gas within 8 to 14 days. This is a real problem. If they had kept up with their contracts to the utilities, because remember the big gas transmission lines, like when you talk about a ruptured gas line in your neighborhood, you're talking about a 1 or a 2-inch gas line.
Yeah.
The stuff I work on is 30, 36, 42, and 48 inch. This is feeding all the heavy industry, all the commercial gas first, right? And so when there's an emergency with this at the source, then really quickly all that gets shunted away to try to keep people from freezing and dying in their houses. And what that meant was industry for the 3 weeks that we were, sort of testing that line and putting it back together, all the industry had to have all their natural gas trucked in.
Ouch.
Yep.
Yeah, that had to cost a pretty penny.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, Travis says extreme cold can make the regulator at the house freeze up and no natural gas coming in. This also happens with propane, by the way. Ask me how I know. That's why we have backups to our backups. And we're going into it here. We're going to be, it says, so John, we're going down to 5 degrees.
Yeah,
which I typically am 5 degrees colder than what they say. So I'm going down to 0 probably. And that we're preparing to go below 0 here right now. And Tennessee's not built for that, Ed. No. So it's all about not bursting pipes, even if I have to drain all the water here, and keeping animals alive at this point. Because, of course, we have babies. Best time of year to have babies is when it gets that cold.
Do you run electric heat tape on your pipes?
Not at this time. They're in my attic and have been rerouted. And what I do is I drip them.
Got it.
And there is one weak spot where I need a very tall, very skinny person, probably skinnier than Tactical, to reach that place. Or I need to redo that. Yeah, they don't. He's pretty tall and skinny. But it's right at that point of my roof, and then it goes into another place. And that is the bottleneck that if I don't deal with that is an issue. And there's a long-term plan to fix it, but it's not fixed. So
Ed,
it's always been the problem.
Do you have wood burning capability there? You heat with wood at all?
I don't heat with wood, but I've got 2 backup stoves that can be plugged in and turned on anytime. So we've got natural gas and electric.
Yeah.
The utilities here for us right now are still so reasonably priced that it's less of a financial outlay to pay for natural gas and electricity than it is to either go cut or pay for someone to cut and truck a cord of wood or 2 cords of wood and do wood burning. It's actually cheaper for us right now. Although that's been going up, but historically where we're at, because the resources we've got all the hydropower, we've got all the natural gas and oil here. It's been really, really well subsidized. So it's been really cheap my entire life growing up to get that stuff.
So I think for most people, if they were honest with themselves and paid themselves an hourly wage while they cut wood, that would be the case for a lot of people probably.
Same with reloading ammunition.
But my wood can't get knocked over and leak. It can't get a hole in it and leak, like that. So, but convenience, right? Convenience is electric, gas, kerosene, propane.
I've got a wood shed with 2 cords of dry aged birch in it, and our birch is all the paper bark birch. It's the real good stuff. Yeah. And like the day that I need wood heat, rock and roll, not a problem. But also, if I don't have a wood burning appliance inside my home, because we still have insurance on our home, then my insurance is reduced by 25%. And so on the day that I need that, then the insurance company by definition is not really a problem anymore. I've got propane cylinders upon propane cylinders, because like you said, propane doesn't go bad, right? And it would be a long term thing. I'll say there's other things I'm worried about before freezing here.
Understood. So natural gas line is not reliant on electrical grid. It produces its own electricity. Is that correct or not correct?
I would say that they're sort of tied. If we had to run a gas transmission without power lines there, then yeah, definitely we can. But it's nice to have that electricity supplied rather than putting in all the additional stuff to try to generate that electricity. Because otherwise, what you're doing is you're putting in your own electrical cogeneration plants, like micro cogen plants, in order to build your grid along with your pipeline. And it's just easier for us to have hydro right-of-ways and pipeline right-of-ways sort of run together.
Keep in mind, people, too, it's continuity of government. It's not continuity of you. Like if push comes to shove, that gas is going to the hospital. It's not coming to your house.
They're not coming to take you away. They're just not coming. that's a Bear Independent saying, and I freaking love it.
He's 100% right too. I love it when he says that.
They are just not coming.
Well, that's because we just don't matter. Like I get a lot of flack for putting it out there what I do, because they're going to come get me and wipe me out or whatever, because I'm going against what the New World Order wants. I'm like, no, they're going to ignore me to death is what they're going to do.
Well, if you owe them money, they're coming, but it'll be a different set of people.
Yep.
And then most of the guys telling you not to put out what you're doing, that's because you make them look bad. So if it's a dude telling you that, Nicole, his wife is sitting there going, why is she doing this, but you're not doing that, right? It makes him look bad. It even demasculates him in some cases. So it's just everybody, the voices barking the loudest are often not doing anything that they're barking. That's just how it is. It's just
because I know how to identify and find mushrooms doesn't mean they're going to come get me, because I know how to get food.
Yeah, I'm not fucking with mushrooms.
Yeah, I know which ones I can eat confidently. I know which ones I don't mess around with it. It's like, I'm not gonna let's see it, try that one, see if it's okay. Nope.
I saw a show about mushrooms in Kentucky, and I don't remember what the number was. Let's say Kentucky has 100 types of mushrooms. 98 will kill you dead, and 2 of them you can eat. It wasn't that drastic, but it was pretty crazy.
The ones we can eat here are pretty obvious though, and don't have lookalikes. I don't know up where you are, Ed. There's got to be some good mushrooms up there though too.
It's anything that that you've got reps and sets in becomes really obvious. Like everything in life is really simplistic and obvious with reps and sets, right? If I start pulling out radiation dosimeters, I'm like, look, this obviously does this and that, and like it obviously reads in milligram and microsieverts. Yeah, that's reps and sets talking. It's the same thing with you with mushrooms. It's just for the same reason. I'm not fucking with mushrooms either. I've had some exposure. I've done wilderness survival training. I've done some bushcraft training, and there's mushrooms involved. And it's like, you know what? I'm going to eat this thing that I know won't make me sick, because the last thing I need is diarrhea.
I know that I can eat my chickens, which might eat mushrooms. And if they're still alive, it's fine for me to have the chicken. You can inoculate. you can order these little wax plugs that come with the spore in them, and you just drill into your big branch of oak up on some sawhorses in the shade. And those things they'll come back every year. Well, for several years, they'll come back. You can do the type of mushrooms you want. And if for all you guys that are like, man, I want to do homesteading, but I don't have revenue, man, if you get you a shed or a shipping container and do mushrooms, man, if you do in sawdust, that you can buy these bags with the sawdust that are already inoculated. I see guys, and they're doing cash business at the farmer's market, and this can bank doing mushrooms.
I had a guy on my show who started with a set of shelves in his house, and he's full-time, and his wife and kid are employed and have other employees producing mushrooms and selling them just a little bit through the mail. He does powder now because in 2020 all the farmers markets shut down where he was, and so he dried them, but mostly just locally and just making bank. And he's like, I'll tell anybody how to do it. Like, they're not going to put him out of business in his state.
You could dehydrate them, you could freeze dry them. I like the powder idea. I drink that 7 sacred mushroom blend every morning that Jack had talked about. I drink that every single morning. I don't know if it's helping me, but it's definitely not hurting me.
There you go. That's all that matters. If it does help, great.
Yes.
Justin says, I tried to do mushrooms, but I failed. That's how much of a green thumb I have. Well, I know more than one person that's failed, but you got to keep trying. It's one of those things. It's kind of like lettuce. I grow lettuce indoors in the winter because I think store lettuce is gross. And, I've had a couple of times where I didn't get lettuce for a couple of weeks because I had germination problems. Like, that's how you learn to get through that.
Well, 30-day review also said he's going to be negative 55 plus with the wind chill.
Yeah, he's in North Dakota.
Yeah, wild.
By the way, his name's Justin too, so that's why.
I figured.
Yeah, it's one of those. I start thinking people's names when I learn their handles.
So I like to say fitness is free, right? And so is water. While your water comes out of the faucet. Ed's a pretty fit guy. I see him doing a lot of shit, and I'm like, ooh, looks like that hurts. I'm probably not going to do that. So what do you have to say about fitness? I see you doing a lot of it.
I try to set my life up because I'm never going to go to the gym and do gym shit. I like to set it up so that like there's a barbell on the floor with weights on it, so that I just commit to myself when I walk past it. I stop, I turn in, and I do 5 deadlifts, and then move on with my life. So I don't have a set gym routine. I don't have anything other than a commitment to myself that when I walk past the heavy shit that I've got set up, I'm just going to do some reps and sets. And when I'm outside, then that means fucking rocks or logs or picking up trailers or skidoos. And it's all it is a commitment to myself that I'm just going to stop, spend 10, 20 seconds, a minute doing it, and then move on with my life. And that's the best I can offer. And that's why, like, I've had people reach out like, you should teach people about fitness. Like,
farm fit, functional fitness.
But really all it is just start. Like, when it comes right down to it, it's like, just commit that you're going to do it and do it. And I mean, if that's like, I have a dumbbell and we're sitting here and I'm just doing this, and I'm not doing this to look good or anything. This is a 20-pound dumbbell. It's not a lot of weight, but it's something, because you can sit in front of a computer nowadays for 5, 6, 8 hours doing like computer shit, right? And then get up and be like, oh, my back's all fucked up.
Yeah, your butt hurts. Yep.
I spent a bunch of years in the back of a radiography lab, which is a mobile lab that goes on the back of a pickup truck, where you process film, right? We use gamma radioisotopes, do X-ray welds and other things, and then make real film and then read it, interpret it. And I spent that time sitting sideways with my back turned, working like this, 4 hours in the dark. There's no better way to destroy your lower back than that. And so what I needed something where I could just find some way to rebuild that, to work those muscles whenever I could get it in. Because again, 1 million kilometers in 10 years, that's a lot of sitting in a truck. You're not lifting a lot of weights while you're sitting in a truck driving. And if I wasn't sitting in that truck driving, going to where I needed to be so that I could do the thing, so I could get back to the next place I needed to be, then I wasn't getting to any of those places. And so I had to figure out a way that would work no matter where I was.
That's a really smart way to work it in, though, I think, where, I hear a lot about people not having time to do any fitness, and you're talking 30 to 60 seconds at a time whenever it happens as you walk by the things. That's super smart.
Just break out 10 push-ups. 10 push-ups, 20, 30, whatever, if you do 10 fast, do 20.
They're free. Like, you go to put some shit in the microwave, you close the microwave, you hit quick 30, you fucking drop and do push-ups until the thing goes beep. It doesn't cost you anything. What were you going to do instead? You were going to sit there and watch your food heat up in the microwave. Do some push-ups.
No, I was going to unload the dishwasher.
Microwave. You keep saying skidoo, and I'm sure that it's just your French accent. I'm not sure. You mean ski-doo? Is that like this? It's like a snowmobile, but for skis, for snow?
So snowmobile is the thing. Ski-doo is Bombardier, who still makes skidoos, right? So
we call those Bombardier, and they're owned by Learjet, who is owned by General Dynamics.
Yeah, Bombardier in Quebec. That's right. And so, like, I have an old 1995 Scandic, which has a Rotax engine in it, built by Bombardier.
Got it.
And it's a ski-doo, because that's what they called it. But yeah, technically they're snowmobiles or snow machines. And they're very common up here. A lot more for, like, here, not for getting around, for traveling places, but for recreation, for like getting out in the mountains and just, climbing mountains. Because what do we have? Lots of snow, lots of mountains.
Right. Like we have jet skis.
Like you have jet skis and you have sea-doos. And I know the difference between a jet ski and a sea-doo, right? In fact, I think there's less jet skis nowadays. I mean, jet skis were a thing, but nowadays, yeah. With the whole, the front, that's,
those
I remember
fun.
Those. Well, they were, but sea-doos, you could have someone on the back with you, and there was just a whole extra world of possibilities there.
Yeah, trailers for them and everything.
Yeah.
Cool. Great. Well, looks like we're winding down a little bit, guys. Do we want to go once around the horn?
Sure. Go ahead, Ed.
I don't know what that means.
Okay,
Once
I'll
around the
go.
horn means like promote what you want to promote. But John, model it.
I'll go. I'm John Willis. I own a company called Special Operations Equipment. Got a YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, TikTok. I don't know. We're everywhere. If you want to communicate with us, we're there. I put up a little different content on Instagram most mornings. We put up 3 to 5 videos every day on YouTube. We have a private membership group where we put up about 10 hours of content that doesn't ever get forward published. It's just private only. We have a couple podcasts that we do every week. Amanda and I do one. Scully and I do another. Check us out. I do a live video every night at 9 o'clock. If you want to have conversation, those are driven by what you type out. So whatever you want to talk about, that's what we talk about.
All right, Ed, go for it.
I'm Ed Hubbell. I own Iridium Solutions. That's the company, iridiumsolutions.ca in Canada. On Instagram and on YouTube, it's the Iridium Group, the_Iridium_group. I'm a licensed security professional, firearms instructor, trauma medicine instructor, and industrial inspector. I wrote and teach one of the only TECC courses available to the public in Canada. It's designed for the Canadian paradigm. I'm a registered educational professional, or a registered educational partner, I should say, with the Committee on Tactical Emergency Casualty Care. My course is very well vetted by, Special Forces medics, trauma surgeons, search and rescue medics, and the such. And so one of the things that we've started doing this year is making this available to professionals, to civilians, to everybody. I have a web store where I sell gas masks and medical equipment. We currently have a giveaway that I'm doing, which is for one of our vehicle first aid kits. So that's a VFAC. You can go on my Instagram page and look at the most recent post, and that's where you can sign up. The way that you get entered to win this is to go on my website, find the name of one product, and put it in the comments below. I do that on purpose because I want you to be on my website and maybe you'll buy something, and also so that everybody else who looks at those comments sees all the cool shit that we sell on my website. So, truth in advertising. I am available to come and teach classes to you in Canada. I say if you're in America, refuge medical, refuge training is where you go, but I'll take care of you in Canada. I'll sell you whatever you need, but really, I'm just here to try to help people figure out what they do and don't need, cut through a bunch of the bullshit that's out there on the internet, and provide at least one reasoned voice for how to just keep getting after it and, just start doing things.
Awesome.
Well, I have to say, I love talking to people who love what they're doing, and it's great to have another person on who has just built their world to be what they want it to be. So Ed, that's been really fun. Guys, I'm Nicole Sauce from Living Free in Tennessee, which is a podcast that runs 5 times a week. And a lot of it talks about my homesteading journey. And I just wanted to say, somebody said earlier, made a joke about buying John's stuff. Yes. My number one favorite special operations equipment gear for homesteading is the tool pouch, because it has so many uses. And right now I have a rabbit with ear mites, which means I have to put oil in their ears once a day. And I've got the tool pouch with all my medical stuff in there, ready to go. I don't drop it. I can bend over. It doesn't fall out like it will out of your breast pocket. That thing's awesome. And as he mentioned, you can't buy them. So
tool apron. We actually have a couple.
Apron. Sorry. Yeah.
And for anybody that doesn't know, if you have a rabbit with ear mites, you can use mineral oil, olive oil, all kinds of shit. But you know what really works right away? Ivermectin.
Oh, I have some of that. I'll give that one. Yeah, this one, he also got beat up by another rabbit, so he's looking pretty sorry. And now they're all getting treated. I was like, finally, something to do with that canola oil somebody gave me that's non-GMO.
It's super weird. It's weird to have ear mites when it's cold right now.
Yeah. This one, there's a lot going on. So
got it.
Yeah. I always have weird rabbit things. So anyway,
I'll plug my favorite SOE product.
Yeah.
That's the large clothes bag.
Yeah.
Hands down. So if you don't have 3 of those, you're wrong.
Right. That's all over at Original SOE Gear. So
like years before I was public facing, I was going out into the middle of nowhere and taking pictures of these bags in like just empty wilderness. And I wasn't even like cross promoting them. I was putting them up on the private Facebook group, just not that I wasn't even trying to sell them. It's just, they're cool. I've used this gear in inside boilers, up in the like way up in the Arctic Circle. I've had it frozen. I've had it at plus 40. I've had it in helicopters. I've had it in boats. I've had it in submarines. Like I'm not here to just pump John up. This shit works, and I have tested the shit out of it.
I mean, once you see
works.
the quality of what he makes, it's like, oh yeah, it's a totally different universe than the other crap that's out there. I was actually sewing last night by hand. I needed to put a hook and eye on, and I bought high-end thread, and it sucks. And I'm like, I got to ask John where he gets his thread, because it's like all, you know how it is, like when it hangs up on stuff, John, like, oh. So we'll talk about that later. Anyway, guys, thanks for joining the live stream. We'll be back next week. We won't have one, but we'll be back after the turn of the year with a Tuesday Live with Jack Spirko. See you then.
Awesome, guys.